Hi, my name is Akiva Goldman. I'm the director and founder of Goldman and Associates. Our firm has a primary focus on family law issues here in Michigan, and today we're going to continue our video series designed to educate and inform the public. So please subscribe to our channel. Parental alienation is something that should never happen. It's one of those things that we hope does not typify a divorce or custody case. But the fact of the matter is, oftentimes we see that. Oftentimes we see one parent taking either direct or perhaps indirect steps to alienate the other parent, to marginalize the role of the other parent in the eyes of the child, to make the child think that the other parent doesn't count as much. I've seen this in all sorts of ways. I've seen situations where one parent will deliberately schedule things during the parenting time of the other parent just to cause that problem, just to marginalize the other parent, just to make it look like they're more important than the other parent, so their schedule counts and his or hers doesn't. It's so indecent when you see that kind of thing, but let's not delude ourselves and engage in the fantasy that that doesn't happen, because it certainly does happen. I even had the experience where one parent told a child that since she's the mom, her children are the real siblings of this child that she had with the other guy, and his children from his new relationship, those are not the real siblings because she's the mom. Imagine telling that to a child and how a young child is supposed to sort of figure that out and what that's supposed to mean, that these are my real half-brothers and these are my unreal half-brothers. Can you imagine how indecent and how treacherous somebody would have to be to try and manipulate the child like that? But it does go on. There is parental alienation. People will come to me all the time, show me texts where dad will say something to the child about mom or vice versa, just to try to make the other person seem like they have a lower position, try to keep them down, try to alienate the situation. And how do you deal with it? Ultimately, it's a good question. What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to badmouth the other parent now because they're doing it to you? That's not the solution. Two wrongs never make a right. That's not how it's going to be. My advice to my clients and my advice to you is always going to be that if you're in that situation, you got to be prepared to do two things. You got to be prepared to document it like crazy. Number one, you've got to be able to have it, show those emails, show those texts, listen to those recordings. You've got to have something to give to your lawyer, because your lawyer just can't walk into court and say she's being nasty. She's being alienatory to the child, to the other father. She's doing that. It's not enough. You got to be able to show the court something, number one. Number two, and this is really important, you got to be committed to that process. If you are complaining about it and it bothers you enough to mention it to your lawyer, be prepared to mention it to the judge, which means let your lawyer file motions. Let your lawyer go to court and understand that the first alienation is not going to result in anything. It's only going to bring it to the court's attention. The court is going to tell the mom or the dad, you better stop doing that. That's all that's going to happen. Both parties are required to treat each other with respect as it relates to the child and not. That's all the court's going to do. And it's not going to stop it, but there will be a second time when it happens. And you better be prepared to let your lawyer file yet a second motion, and a third, and a fourth, until the court can see that there's a pattern and practice of alienation that it's got to do something about. Most of the time, the courts don't want to take away custody because of that. They recognize that these are parties that don't get along. And human nature might be that somebody might let something slip about the other parent, something bad, something unflattering. Therefore, the court doesn't necessarily immediately want to upset the custody. But if you do it and you document it and you file those motions, not once, not twice, maybe 3 or 4 times, the court will say, you know what? Enough's enough. I've seen this 3 times already. I've warned you so many times. I'm changing custody. I'm making a change. I'm requiring that you can only have limited parenting time supervised because I want to monitor this. The court will do it. But understand, it's not one of those things that the court will likely take immediate action right off the bat. And that's what I mean when I say you got to document it like crazy and you got to be committed. You may say, well, I can't afford to have my lawyer go there 3 or 4 times. That's going to cost me a fortune. You're right. I'm not here to tell you otherwise. There's no question that the costs are considerable, but you got to consider the cost. You got to weigh that cost against the other costs of your child growing up thinking you're this horrible person and therefore not to have a relationship with you. What cost is that? And are you willing to pay that cost? I think if you think about it, you realize, you know what? I know I may have to go and hawk for it. I know it's going to cost me money and I'll have to tighten my financial belt to do it, but I cannot let my ex get away with that. Therefore, I'm going to let my lawyer file what he or she has to file in order to resolve this issue. And that's how it's got to be. If you have any questions about that, reach out and we'll be glad to help you out.